In a previous video, I looked at the G160, and today I'm looking at this one. This is a Grasshopper 160. It's a just a different frame from Diatone that has a little bit different shape to it. Let me get this opened up. Like I said, there's not much to this. Power distribution board with a main plate and upper plate. Then it comes with these, and it has the screws, some nuts to go on them, and the spacers for the frame and the spacers for the power distribution board, and spacers, little red spacers to separate the power distribution board from the main plate. Let me get this thing put together. To get this power distribution board mounted onto this plate, I found that it's easier if you put the power distribution board facing down, put the nylon spacers through it like this, and then put the two little rubber washers on here, and then put the frame on top of that. Then you can put the nuts on the bottom to hold it in. That way you're not trying to fiddle with getting these spacers through the washers and through the board and through the main plate at the same time. This is what I was talking about. You get all this stuff ready to go, take the board, and then it should just lay right over top of this, and if you get them lined up right, they'll just slip on like that. Now you can put these nuts on here one at a time, and I just push down kind of hard, and that gives enough grip on the ground for the spacer not to spin when I put the nuts on. And all I got to do is just get enough that they hold themselves on, and once they get themselves on, you can pick it up and twist them on tight and, you know, be done with it. There we go, just like that. So you can see how those washers keep the carbon fiber and the power distribution board from touching each other. And also, it's just a very small amount of space. And also, by using these spacers, you have a place up here where you can mount your CC3D or your NASA 32 or whatever flight board you're using. And then you put the screws in through it into the spacers here. And also, you can see it has two 5-volt outputs here and here. So you can power your power distribution board off of this without feeding it 12 volts or 16 from a 4S. So here's the 160 Grasshopper frame completed with the big G up here, and on the bottom I flipped it around this way so the G was correct from looking at it from the bottom, since you'll never see it from the top. Anyway, with these spacers in here, you can see there's just enough room in there to mount your flight board. But this thing, it doesn't have a lot of space inside the frame for hardly anything because this power distribution board is so big and your flight board takes up so much room. You have enough room up here for a camera and to angle it so it comes up between the two plates, but your ESCs are going to have to be mounted out here on the arms for sure because there's not much room. And your battery wire will go through here to help hold it in place, or at least one of them will, to help hold it in place. Your video transmitter, if you're going to do FPV, will probably have to sit up on top of this because there's just not a lot of room on this thing, but it feels real light. And the other thing that's different about this one that I haven't ever seen before is they actually used the nylon spacers between the lower plate and the upper plate. Even on this G160, it is using the metal spacers there. You can see there it's a little bit taller with the metal spacers, but if we look at the size of these frames together, if we look at the motors on them, the motor spacing up here, let me flip it over this way, the Grasshopper's here on top, and it's about almost the same size. The arms look like they're about the same width, but the end of this one is definitely a little bigger. Well, let's see the back here from front to back. If we look at it this way, about the same there too. This one definitely has a smaller body in it though than the G160. The holes on these arms are cut for 2mm screws, so you're gonna have to use something like an 1806 like this one, or a 1306 motor like this one. The 1306 motor and the 1806 motor, they can both spin 4-inch props about the same. They can also spin 3-inch props about the same. So there's really no good reason I can think of to have a 1806 2300 kV motor for 3-inch props, but for this one the 3-inch props work well, and so do 4-inch props. Now if you are going to run 1806 motors with 4-inch props, you're probably going to want something with a higher kV. This is 2300 kV. With 4-inch props, 1806 motors have no problem spinning them. So if you even got something with 2600 or 3200 kV, if you can find them, these things will spin 4-inch props like a madman. Now, like if you're going to run 4-inch props with these 2300s, you're probably going to be lacking in a little bit of power, and you'd probably be better off doing something like these 13 1306s because they have 3100 kV. Now the problem is, as you get longer propellers, smaller motors have a harder time spinning those larger propellers, and they'll probably get hotter. But with a 4-inch prop, 3100 kV and a 1306 motor should be enough, unless you're going to get some higher kV motors that are 1806 size. So this is a 5-inch prop, and you can see there's pretty much no chance you're going to be able to run this on the frame. But this is a 4-inch prop, and the 4-inch prop, if I center it up here, you can see it clears the frame just fine, and it clears the frame just fine back here. It's not going to rub up on this, up on the upper plate or anything, because it's not cut that way. But 4-inch props should work on this just fine. The ET160 was about 36 grams, and this one, it weighs in at 33.9 grams, and that's with all the nylon nuts and screws in place. When you're measuring the size of a quadcopter, it's from the motor to motor on both of these, center of each one to the center of the other one, from your motor shaft. So you can cheat a little by pushing the motors one way and only using 2 screws if you wanted to. But they said this is a 160, and it looks like it's about a 163, maybe 163 looks about right. So that's pretty close for a 160 frame. One more thing to measure. I wanted to measure the opening between these plates so you can see how much room you have. You got about 13.34 millimeters space there. And between the upper and lower plates, if you're going to try to put a camera in here, you got about 15 millimeters of space. So you're looking at a pretty small camera to fit in there. So this is the Grasshopper 160 and the ET160. This one has a lot bigger body on it, and I'm not really sure that it's actually really necessary, because you really can't fit much more inside of this one, even with the bigger body. And they thinned out the bottom plate a little bit to probably get rid of some of the weight. This one has a little bit less room inside of it, but it still has room enough for a camera, and your ESCs are going to have to go on the arms. But I think your ESCs have to go on the arms on this one too, because there's really not a lot of room inside there. So this one, being a little bit lighter and a little bit smaller, should fly a little better maybe. This one has solid arms. This one has the holes down the arms, and that's probably also to help lighten it up. But again, your motors are going to be like these 1306 motors, and these things don't hardly weigh anything, and so there's not going to be a lot of mass hanging off the end of your arms with these either. So I don't really think it'd be too bad. They both come with the same power distribution board, so that's not really an advantage for either one of them. This one, since it has the nylon spacers, it's going to be kind of nice that you might even have some other spacers that you could use in here, and you don't even have to use the ones that came with it. You could get taller ones and give yourself a little bit more room, maybe move your video transmitter to the inside. And the other nice thing is, if you do that, you can still reuse these nylon spacers in some other application. These are kind of unique to these frames. These are metal spacers, and they can really only be used as metal spacers, not really for much of anything else. You can't mount your power distribution board or your flight controller with those. Before I got this, I thought I'd really like the ET160 a lot better than this one, but it turns out I actually like this one a little better. So this one might have to take a back seat on the shelf, and this one will probably be the one that actually gets built out later when I get some time. So this is the Diatone Grasshopper 160 from Banggood. If you're interested in this, I'll have some links in the description. If you have any questions about it, leave them in the comments, and I'll try to help you out as best I can. And as always, thanks for watching.